why is it that most British Muslims vote for parties that are on the left and are completely dismissive of everything that I've just said? And it seems to me an underexplored topic and a significant one. So in the 2019 election, according to the British Election Survey, 80% of British Muslims voted Labour. In fact, it's 2019 for Corbyn. Yeah? An election where Labour got the worst vote overall since 1935. 80%. Now, that fell very slightly in the last election, but only because there was a big move to some of the kind of Gaza independence, right? So it was not a move in a free market direction. And I think this is a much more surprising factor than we realise. It doesn't happen in most Muslim majority democracies. If we think about, if we just think about the countries of origin of the majority of British Muslims, Bangladesh, Pakistan, there, generally the parties of the left are the more aggressively secular or anti-clerical ones. The religious parties, if you like, tend to be the ones that privatise and cut taxes and open markets, which of course is exactly in line with what you would expect given the tenets of the religion. And yet it doesn't happen here. By the way, I'm not arguing, just to be clear about this, I'm not arguing that any of the great religions is political, right? I'm not going to try and argue that Muhammad was a capitalist any more than that Jesus was a socialist. These are, it's absurd to try and press them into contemporary arguments. Okay? They were, all prophets of revealed religions are dealing in metaphysical truths. All of them are fundamentally interested in another world than this one, and so it's a mistake to read too much into it. And yet, we also acquire ethics and a way of looking at the world from the culture in which we're raised, whether or not we're personally devout. And so it's unsurprising to me that you have this left-right axis in Muslim-majority countries. It's very striking when you talk to the real lefties in the Arab world or in South Asia, that their favourite conspiracy theory is that these Islamist parties are all CIA fronts and are all run by the Americans. Not the way it's generally seen in the US. Why does that happen? Well, I think the answer is that in this country and in most of the West, philosophical, ethical, and religious questions have been subordinated to the ruling ideology of woke, of DEI. The world is seen as a pyramid of oppression and servitude. And where you slot into that pyramid defines everything else. Or to put it another way, the majority of Muslims in this country were initially seen when they arrived not as Muslims, but as people who were not white, and therefore in a victim category, and everything else was built around that. And hence we got the idea that somehow free markets were a colonial imposition, and that to resist it was a legitimate voice of resistance against a patriarchal and oppressive state. But I have to say, historically, that puts everything exactly back to front. The Islamic civilization was mercantile and property-based centuries before Europe was. In the Prophet's time, we had camel trains and trading missions traveling from Europe to China on the basis of what we would now more or less call a joint stock venture with limited liability. It took Europe a long time to get to that. What's the imposition, if we must talk in these terms, what's the colonial imposition on the Arab world, or more widely, on the Islamic world? What's the Western imposition? It's not capitalism, it's precisely the opposite. The real imposition from this part of the world in the Arab world is Nasserism, it's Baathism, it's Arab socialism, it's every other half-baked, rotten idea to have come out of a bad Western university. And so, returning to a culture of property and contract. You know that the longest verse in the Quran is about the correct way to write a contract, right? Returning to that which is the genuinely indigenous culture, it seems to me, would be a far better way of honouring the patrimony of that region.